Welcome to Money Making Sense, the show that if money affects your life in any way whatsoever, we're going to talk about it. And we are talking tax tips. We're right in the middle of our tax tips series. And joining me is Becki Schryer. You are with
Stayner Bates.
Stayner Bates, all right. And we're going to talk about home deductions today. That's a big one for me because let me tell you, I have to work from home frequently. I'm constantly editing audio. I wind up getting an interview after I've left work. So I'm at home recording them. I have to edit. How do I write all that off on my taxes?
Well, it's become a little more complicated than it was even a year ago with the new tax law.
Okay.
They have eliminated employee business expenses. So if you are on a W-2, if you get a W-2 from your employer, the only way you're going to get any kind of a benefit for that is if they reimburse you, because you cannot write it off directly.
Okay, so Becki, you're my accountant, and I'm sitting in front of you, and I'm not happy with you.
Happens all the time. Bearer of bad news.
Well, is anything being done to
mitigate that?
Mitigate that, yeah.
So far they have not, because they did not actually address the fact. They did talk about getting rid of employee business expenses. This is I have to speak to the employers on this. Okay. Because if the employer value their employees, instead of maybe paying them a little bit of extra money because they can't write it off, they should go through the list and have their employees highlight the expenses, and if the employer feels like those are paid on their behalf and for their benefit, then they can then have a reimbursable plan which reimburses them for those expenses, and they don't have to pay tax on it.
Well, even if you have an employer, I mean, I do a lot of this at home just because, I've got the interview and I do it, and my employer may not even realize I'm doing a lot of my interviews at home. What about those employers that are now saying, we need at least 2 days a week, you're going to work from home?
When they require it like that,
yeah,
then they need to go through what I would call a reimbursable plan and say, these are the things we will reimburse you for having a home office.
So even if I have a home office, I use my home office, I have drawers there, but because my employer requires me to work from home 2 days a week, I cannot write that off?
Because of the new tax law, it's gone. The deduction for that is gone. Completely gone. A home office is still a deductible expense. If you have income that you're running your own business, you're doing it like that. If you have your own business and you get income that is not on a W-2, if you get it on a 1099 MISC, then you put that on a Schedule C, and then you can have a write-off for your office and your home if you don't have an office outside that you could be doing that work there. So your employer needs to work with you on that and how they reimburse you. Even like I said, sometimes when a tax-free fringe benefit is taken away as being tax-free, sometimes the employer will pay a little bit extra so that goes on your W-2 and you pay tax on it, but then you can afford to make some of those payments. So instead, on a home office, of them increasing your salary because of that, they can do this reimbursable plan and say, we will reimburse up to so much every month that we require that you have this home office. We'll reimburse those costs and go through the list and have them go through the list with you.
Okay. But my candle making business, because I do that on the side, they're really pretty.
Yes.
Everybody should buy one.
I would.
That, because I use my office for that, I can write off my office space, my supplies, all of that for that candle making business.
Correct.
But I can't just slip in a few papers that I'm working on from work that gives me the W-2.
Probably not.
But I don't say anything to anybody.
But for your candle making business, I mean, you are taking a ratio of the area that you work on that candle making business versus the size of your whole home. Now, if you're doing that in the kitchen and you use that part-time, sometimes they do that by hours.
Okay.
So they can do it both ways, limit it by hours.
So with this new tax law, is there a maximum amount I can deduct, or do we have to have a minimum amount to start with before I can start doing deductions with the home office?
That's gone away. There used to be, when it was on your itemized deduction list, there was a cap of 2% of your adjusted gross income that was taken off the top of that. But since that deduction is gone, no, what you're limited by is income. So if your candle making business is losing money, then the only home office deductions that they will give you there is your mortgage and interest in your real estate taxes, which might be nice because taxes are limited to $10,000 now.
Right. Okay. So if I'm losing money in my candle making business, I can't really write off the kitchen, the portion of the kitchen.
It won't add to it, but it carries forward.
Oh.
So whatever you don't use, it will go into that for next year. So if all of a sudden you made a huge amount of money the next year, you'd get to take the expenses that you couldn't take in the prior years.
Okay. Is that new as well?
No, that's old.
You've always been able to roll over? Okay.
Old.
I guess I haven't made a lot of money. I didn't know that. Okay. What are some other things that we need to know about? Let's take away employer, that I work from home for my employer.
Okay.
Everything that I do in my home office is my own personal business. What are some other things I need to know for this new tax law?
For this new tax law for your home business?
Yes.
For your home business. There's probably not a lot of changes on your home business. That's probably stayed the same. So if you're looking at just the home office type of expenses, then it is that ratio of the size of your office or room that you're working in, or even storage area. If you're storing candle supplies in your garage, then you include the size of your garage and you include that in that ratio.
Okay.
If you're a daycare, then most people use almost their whole home for things like that.
Right.
And then you just do a ratio of the total hours in a year to the hours that you have kids in your home.
Okay. Can I write off electricity as well?
Yes. All your utilities, all the cost of your home go on there at that same ratio.
Okay. So if I could make candles here at work and I choose to do it at home, that goes under that, sorry, I can't write it off because...
If you pay rent for a candle making shop outside of your home, then it probably would be more difficult to write off what's at home plus the rent. Okay. But in this case, you're not an employee, so that you're not having an office provided to you.
Right.
So if you're, renting that office, it's part of your costs, and then your home office becomes a little bit sketchier.
Okay. Now, I know we used to be able to, I would take papers home, and this is probably part of that, it got written off, but I would bring papers home from work, read it, and I just had one drawer. I can no longer write off the one drawer that I was using.
Probably not. Yeah. No employee business expenses at all.
None at all.
So
you are just being hard about this.
No, it's terrible. And so in the past, when people would give an auto allowance rather than, reimbursable for mileage and things like that, that auto allowance was income, and then you would write off the excess through this employee business expense. Right. You no longer can do that. So employers need to take a hard look at this.
Oh, so I can't even track miles.
Right. If you get reimbursed, if your employer reimburses you, you're fine.
Okay.
Because that's not a tax-free fringe benefit, and they can write it off like that.
Okay.
But you can't take that expense.
Okay. So if I submit my miles to the mileage to my employer and they reimburse me, I'm fine.
You're fine.
I don't need to do anything.
Same
but
thing.
If they don't, because when I was first hired, it was always done through my taxes.
Right.
And now the taxes won't help.
No. So employers and employees need to have a heart-to-heart conversation about this.
Okay.
'Cause that's a big change.
Okay, it sounds like I'm heading to you, my CPA. Help me out with all this. Because, I had so much I was going to write off this year. All right. Becki Schryer, you are with Stayner Bates.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you need to find your own CPA, go to uacpa.org to find the best one that'll work for your needs. Also, tune into KSL News Radio every week We're going to bring you some good tax tips. Again, go to uacpa.org. That's Utah Association of Certified Public Accountants.
Thanks for being a Money Making Sense listener. Follow your common sense onto social media. Money Making Sense on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.